But we've got Sam O'Sullivan as the guest from Tough Talk. And as I said earlier in our broadcast, it's possible that a background of being bullied at school may have set our guest, Sam O'Sullivan, on his contemporary path of exploring and supporting men's mental well-being through this campaign called Tough Talk. Sam is a clinical psychologist who's currently sacrificing his professional career to travel New Zealand to understand more about mental health among men and what barriers might be stopping men opening up. So, Sam, welcome to Take It From Us. You've travelled today, from Wellington back to Christchurch, where you're resident at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I'm a resident in my van in someone's front yard, actually.
Right. So you're actually living out of your van.
Yeah. That's I mean, occasionally I'll stay in a room, but most of the time in a van.
Okay. So what? Front yard, backyard of a friend's place?
Yeah. It's actually some family friends in Taitapu, just out of Christchurch.
Oh, right.
And,
on the way to Little River.
Yeah, and I've just got a solar panel on the van now, so I've got power, and it's turning into a wee home.
Oh, okay. So you're quite comfortable with this lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, I love it, especially this time of year. I mean, I can travel around and open up the van, and I'll be in the most stunning location you can imagine, next to multi-million-dollar properties, drinking a cup of tea, enjoying the same view they're viewing, and then I move on to another spot the next day. So,
right. So you're something of a sort of freedom camper.
Yeah. I mean, I do stay with people, and my van's self-contained, so I can stay in sort of the spots where I'm allowed to. I try to stick by the rules and be a tidy Kiwi.
Oh, that's great. So, I mean, is this is the way that you travel around and you organise presentations, workshops, speeches, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I do some workshops where I go, but most of the time I just I tend to just get to know local communities and film people, which I then broadcast. And I just help people where I can too. I find there's not many available clinical psychologists, so if I can stop by and help people resolve their conflicts by facilitating, or help someone find their life purpose, or just sit with someone as they feel their pain and work through it, then that's what I do. So
right,
I'm a bit of just trying to help people as I go.
Is that a way of sort of keeping the wolf from the door?
The wolf from the... What do you mean by that?
Oh, well, I must be old-fashioned, but the wolf from the door is, having enough money to be able to, I guess, have a door and close it and feel safe.
Yeah, well, a lot of that work I actually don't charge for. I have been doing a little bit of therapy through Skype, and I do charge for that. So that is one way. And other than that, I did some crowdfunding at the beginning of the series, and I put some of my own money into it. And I sort of have different ways to find funding. I've got some online platforms, and at the moment actually looking for funding. So there's some potential avenues there too for season 2, because I've just finished my first season and looking to grow it and do it even better.
What do you? How do you describe a season? Is that a year or?
Yeah, I guess it's funny. I guess it's kind of arbitrary. Like I did 11 episodes, and I felt like it was time to stop and kind of reflect and recreate the show a little bit. And that's pretty typical for a season, around 10 to 12 episodes.
I need to sort of interrupt here because I'm not sure that we've quite clarified what these episodes are. And I heard you say that you're doing some filming. So can you just give us a bit of an outline on that?
So basically what I do is I'm trying to find New Zealand men sort of from the ages of sort of early 20s to, say, 50. And I'm trying to get a diverse array of Kiwis, for different roles they might be in, different ethnicities, different sort of cultures. And I sit down with them, and we tend to have a camera on the 2 of us or 3 of us. Sometimes there might be a partner involved. And then we'll have a conversation basically about their story, their tough story, and then moving into sort of what they do for their well-being, what they do in their community, how they support others, tools, tips, that kind of thing, and really look at, I guess, fundamentally, like, the idea is to actually show men opening up in a somewhat vulnerable way, to show that that's okay and it's so people can relate to it. So I have these conversations and try to use drone shots and different beautiful shots of all the beautiful national parks around the country to make it entertaining and visually attractive, I guess.
So if you were interviewing a man who, one of his wellness tools was to hike in the backcountry or walk in the bush and that sort of thing, then you'd hook up some footage.
That's it. I mean, episode 1 of season 1 is a guy. He's a hunter. He's a fighter. He's he does all these things, and he's also he's a big man, but he talks about his feelings, and we have some footage of some hunting in there and him feeding his hunting dogs and stuff like that as he's talking to me. I think people in the film industry call it the B-roll, which is like the filler shots, the shots you put in between the conversation to illustrate what you're talking about.
So where can people see these? Where are they uploaded?
So you can go to my website, that's toughtalk.nz, or there's also the Facebook page, so it's just at toughtalknz, and you can follow me there, which is a good way just to kind of get the updates, and you can see a little bit about my journey as well. And I'm also on Instagram, toughtalknz, where I just post status updates, the photos of mainly, it's kind of focused on my personal journey, I guess, because for me it's it's definitely a journey as well.
Right.
So those are the, and there's also YouTube, and Tough Talk New Zealand through YouTube.
So on YouTube, they just go, anybody could go into toughtalk.nz.
Yeah. I'd say the easiest way to see all my footage is just to go to, just to toughtalk.nz. And, if you want to actually follow me and see the updates, Facebook's a good way to do that.
Right. You mentioned your own journey. I understand that you were working in an acute psychiatric unit somewhere, maybe some years ago.
No, I was. That was in Porirua. I worked at an inpatient rehabilitation unit. So it wasn't just acute, actually. It was more longer-term care. And I guess it was a regional service, so I would service a lot of different regions in the lower North Island. So you could say it was the bottom of the cliff, really. It was the last place people would go if they been going to hospital and sort of not finding the support they needed. And we would try our best to, get these people back into the community if possible. And it was really there. It was mostly men there. Probably, I'm not quite sure on the percentage, maybe 80% men, which is interesting. And in itself, there seems to be more men that get to that place. And I did a lot of work with them. Some of them even in that place had barely even talked about what had happened to them, the abuse or other trauma they'd experienced.
I mean, that's somewhat extraordinary, isn't it? That they've come through the mental health system to a point where they're verging on being in acute care, and they've never voiced some of their challenges, some of their vulnerabilities. Yeah, well,
it's hard. I mean, it's a medicalised system, at least as far as the DHB system is. I mean, and actually we've got some really good community treatment teams where there's a lot of psychology input, but hospital is quite medicalised for good reasons. Sometimes it's, people can get quite, difficult to manage. But I do think we need more talking therapy there. And it is improving.
Did you?
But it also, it is a cultural thing too. A lot of the men just didn't want to talk because they're just like, no, I'm not going to talk about that. And it took a lot of work and a lot of trust building and a lot of time to actually get to the point where they would start opening up. And then there was 66 of them and one of me, so it was very challenging.
So, what's your view today of, when you have to confront men who say, well, no, I don't want to talk about those vulnerabilities, I don't want to talk about their abuse, I don't want to talk about emotional challenges. How do you address that?
I suppose a number of ways. I mean, I've actually been quite surprised. People always say to me, how do you find these guys? And I say, actually, I just talk about what I do, and then they find me. And, in fact, there's so many guys out there who are just like, I want to tell my story. And I'm like, look, I can't. It's a lot of work, I can't make all these videos. So you'll actually be surprised. I think there's a big change coming with men. And I think I'm just starting to see it. I'm in a position where I can see it.
Why do you think that change is happening? Is it possibly reflected in the fact that 80% of the patients or clients in that facility were men, and they're realising that we need to do something about ourselves?
Yeah, I think it was. It was obviously a big political issue in the elections this year. Was actually mental health and suicide in particular, and looking at the stats. It's mostly men taking their lives.
Have you got the actual stats there, Sam? I mean, I know that...
No, I don't. There was that great campaign with all the shoes. So they laid out all these shoes in Parliament. I'm actually forgetting the exact number of shoes.
There was 600
sorry.
Yeah, well, that was the latest suicide statistic. And I thought I was reasonably up with the suicide statistics, but I don't know quite what the breakdown is between men and women. But I'm sure you're right in saying that there's a higher proportion of men.
It was close. Oh, it was close to 500 of those were men, maybe upper 400s. So I'd have to check to be exact.
Right.
But you're talking more than half, way more than half. Massively disproportionate. And a lot of other stats are massively disproportionate too. The people committing violence, the people in prisons, the people doing drugs, the people, that are actually being harmed as well. A lot of men are the victims of violence. I could go on. These men are massively overrepresented when it comes to kind of the greatest harms in our society. Not to say women aren't harmed. I'm just saying, men seem to have there seems to be something going on here, and I suspect I have some insight into what is going on.
You're saying that I would be not at all surprised if you had some major insights into what's going on. Can I ask you that question? What do you think is what do you think has caused this disproportion of men, perhaps, as you say, in prison or accused of abuse or in psychiatric facilities or respite or under community care? What do you think that one of the reasons is that we don't talk about it, that we bottle it up?
Yeah, I think I suppose there's a number of reasons, and I've done research on this, but the former research I've done is qualitative in nature. So it means I interviewed a lot of people from different demographics. So I have a good spread, and I looked for themes in what they were saying and did a thematic analysis. And what was really strongly revealed was that was one of the strong themes is men strive to be strong, and by strong, that means hiding their emotions, hiding their vulnerabilities, not showing weakness. Basically putting on a sort of mask, crossing their arms and getting on with it, which is all well and good physically. Sometimes you've got to be physically tough to get through something, and sometimes you've got to do that mentally too, but at some point you need to stop and actually unwind and open up and let it out. Because when you bottle it up, as you know it'll burst out as usually in some form of anger, and not a very helpful form of anger. It'll be directed at someone as violence, so externally or internally. As sort of self-hate or, insecurities. That can lead to things like suicide. So that is one major theme, is that drive for strength or toughness. But the whole point of Tough Talk is to try and change that, is to say, it's tough to talk, but that makes you tough. What I'm seeing is people who are talking about their feelings, the men who are doing that, are seen as actually strong, are seen as cool. A lot of people are saying, look at these men, and really, if they can get up there and have the strength to actually let some emotions out in front of people, that's what's seen as strength today. It's certainly what I'm seeing. So I think that's one thing we've got to change, and it's starting to change.
Yeah, I do have a question here about the name Tough Talk. Does it mean that men find it tough to talk about emotional issues, their mental health or their vulnerabilities, because it will be perceived as a weakness? Or could it mean we need to get tough with men to open up?
It's probably the first one. It's got a dual meaning. Yes, I'm saying it's tough for men to talk. In terms of the way we've created sort of social norms, it tends to be more okay for women to talk about their feelings. And in fact, women do it, in general, very well. I listen to women talk, and they've got a huge language for it, and create spaces for it and really communicate about much more than a lot of men.
Well, they take time. I think they take time to talk emotionally as well. I always use the analogy of four women going out onto the tennis court, and the first 15 minutes is them chatting away. It may not be emotional things, but I'm sure it's a degree of bonding. If four men are playing, I mean, they just want to get on with it.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, and I really see that, and I think that needs to change the idea of tough talk as saying, yes, it's tough, but I mean, it's also that double meaning of saying, well, if it's tough, if that's a challenge for men, then that certainly makes you tough by doing it.
Right.
So it's tough to talk, but that makes you tough. So I'm actually trying to say, if you want to be perceived as tough today in modern New Zealand, talk about your feelings and do that, with mana, with strength. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how people respond.
Oh, I mean, I think that's an absolutely lovely sentiment, that if you want to be viewed as tough, well, talk about something that is tough, and that's your feelings and emotions. It's a wonderful way to project it.
That's at the heart of tough talk, really. That's what I'm trying to say, just in the name alone, really.
You're with Take It From Us on 104.6 Planet FM.
And I'm Sheldon Brown, host of Take It From Us, Mental Health Radio, and we're talking today to Sam O'Sullivan from Tough Talk. It's a campaign, exploring and supporting men's mental well-being, and you can go to toughtalk.nz to see some of the uploaded video work that Sam is doing. Sam, you're still there in Christchurch?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, great. I hope what I said there was accurate to what you've been telling us on Take It From Us.
Yeah, that was very accurate. Thanks, Sheldon.
Right. So what sort of response are you getting to the material that you're uploading?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, at this stage, I think, like I say, my main platform to engage an audience has been through Facebook. And I had a video posted by Renews New Zealand, which is particularly focused at younger people, and that got about 35,000 views last I looked, and 500 shares, and similar amount of likes. So it seems to be really hitting the spot when I get it on bigger platforms. My own personal page is sort of just about 1,300 people on it. So it's pretty early stages in terms of building an audience. But what I'm finding is the quality of engagement's really good. People are really responding, sending me long messages about how it's helped them, how they relate to people, and, how they really believe in the work, because I think a lot of people have had experiences of losing someone or seeing someone else's mental health decline and actually see the positive messages in Tough Talk actually really being, just the right kind of messages that would have really helped these people. And I also create some tools. I have a toolkit called Focus, where it's just more educational material on how to actually focus your mind calmly in your day-to-day life. So that's been quite well received as well.
So in your own life, have you been challenged by your own mental health?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess social anxiety was something I really experienced, and small bouts of depression, but really I think anxiety has been the big thing for me. And you mentioned, as you introduced me right at the beginning, that I was bullied when I was younger in school, and that's true. I got to a point in school where I didn't really have many friends, or the friends I did have didn't want to take the social risk of being friends with me because a few, I guess, more dominant young boys in my year group had decided to pick on me, and that was really hard. I ended up sort of having nowhere to go. At my lunch breaks, hiding in the library, and eventually, being hassled there, and it was a hard time. And being, I think every time I'd put my hand up to ask a question, one time my voice sort of dropped, and a kid made a joke about that, and so every time I'd try and answer a question, I would be ridiculed by the whole class. So I stopped engaging in my academic studies. I didn't want to be part of that, and it was really, really affected me. And
What did that do for your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your ability to communicate with others?
Yeah, it made me hugely anxious. Like I just experienced a really strong feeling of anxiety. So just my whole body, would become alert. Like heart beating, shaking. I used to shake a lot in front of people. So I couldn't get up and talk in front of people because I could, I could barely do anything. I couldn't write on a whiteboard if I was trying to teach. I couldn't, I'd have panic attacks. And it really, really took me a lot of work to make my way from that, and a lot of small steps. And actually teaching, I taught psychology at university, and that was really good in terms of I took small steps to do that by exposing myself to sort of more and more getting out of my comfort zone, and then how I was doing that.
Today you're doing a radio interview from Christchurch. Any butterflies in the stomach in advance of doing that?
No, look, I've really worked on this. I think mindfulness, breathing, just getting just changing the whole way I looked at myself, actually learning to really accept and I guess love myself, actually being like, I didn't realize I had a problem with myself, that I actually didn't like even looking at myself, but now I smile, and I don't get that nervous. Occasionally something will trigger me and I'll have a bit of a panic, and I don't quite, there's small things still there I need to work on. But, I do a video project now, I don't even talk in front of people. It's been a huge personal journey.
Yeah, well, there's quite a coincidence here, really, because Declan Curran, who is our technician here at Take It From Us, mentioned last week to a guest that he had been bullied and that he has escaped to the library. And
I did. I can talk a little bit with this thing. I've had a tongue biopsy, so. I just wondered, it's interesting the library comes into it because it's almost like Bambi's refuge island, in the story. Mm. And I found that impacted on my life quite a way forward, and it's only really been in the last 5 or so years that I've addressed it. Did you find that stayed with you for a long time as well before you could find some peace with that and say, hey, I'm okay, it's them, not me?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was the most instrumental for me, and I guess in that part of the journey, was actually one of the bullies later became my friend, and it was actually because we were in a music competition together, and his bass guitar wasn't working, and I suspect this was the moment where he was in a vulnerable position and he wanted to use mine, and he thought I'd say no, and I sat there. I remember that moment thinking I can actually have I can do something to affect him, but instead I showed compassion and gave him the guitar, and he was shocked. I remember, and then he stopped stopped hassling me, and later on in life he actually, apologized and said, "Look, I had problems with my alcoholic parents, but I had this going on, and I just basically saw you as someone to take it out on." So that was huge because it made me realize it wasn't just me; it wasn't actually about me; it was actually what had happened to him. And I suspect that's the case with a lot of this stuff. I suspect everyone's a victim in their own way, and it's just sort of historical trauma kind of.
I just wanted to...
I relate to that sentiment for sure.
I was just going to chuck a little bit in there and say that you will find that if you really dig into the history of the bully, as you say, there's usually trouble in their life and it's their way of taking frustration, and they pick on who they perceive to be weaker, and you and I just happen to be in the firing line. But I'm going to bow out and give my tongue a rest now and let Sheldon carry on.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing as well.
Yeah.
You're with Take It From Us on 104.6 Planet FM.
And I'm Sheldon Brown. We're talking to our guest today in Christchurch, Sam O'Sullivan, who is on his contemporary path of exploring and supporting men's mental well-being through a campaign called Tough Talk. And I'd really urge our listeners to check out toughtalk.nz, particularly on Facebook. But I just wanted to take you back, Sam. You said that you'd had 35,000 hits on something that you'd uploaded to Facebook. Can you just give us a bit of detail on that one?
So that was... So there's a news platform on Facebook called RE, so like RE.
RE.
RE News New Zealand. So they focus on particularly, issues in the media that affect young people. And I saw that they were doing a mental health week and putting up some really cool stuff. So I messaged them, and so they shared a summary of my videos with some little animated text and things like that. And it did really well.
Did you have to prepare that material, or did they do that for you?
They used my material, but they edited some of my videos to give it into a single, and they used some of the key messages that I sent them that are behind Tough Talk.
Right.
And otherwise my videos on my own platform have gone out at probably as high as 10,000 views. I'm still building my personal audience, and then looking for platforms. Look, I want to engage TVNZ on demand. I want to engage New Zealand on air, but I sort of had to produce some work because I'm not a trained videographer, and I think the content's good, and that's what I hear. But I do need to work on my production, which I have been doing. So hopefully season 2 is going to be clean and ready to be put out there on bigger platforms.